Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Sunday Sessions with Courtenay Pollock and myself. Hey, Courtney.
Hello, Heidi.
Hope everyone's doing well this Sunday afternoon, and I'm going to let Courtney take it away now. We're still in Egypt, I believe.
Yes, we are.
Yes.
I wish I was there now.
Yeah.
It's not so bad.
It's not so bad. All right, take it away.
Thank you. Now, I mentioned that a lot of us came over as 300 on a charter, which was an interesting journey. And the band were on tour in the United States, and I think they were still on tour a week into our being in Egypt. So it was at least a week or more before the band actually arrived. And I remember I was in the lobby of the Mina House Hotel. There's a bunch of us milling around there for whatever reason, and then Garcia shows up, and he's got this beatific smile, like he has this wonderful smile, and he comes in, he stops, and he goes, Courtenay of Egypt, and he comes over and kisses me on both cheeks, and he said, I've been hearing great things. Which is so magnanimous. I mean, these guys have just come off an awesome tour. I think the last two gigs were at Red Rocks, and they came straight from there. I mean, but of course now this is a vacation for them. They had arranged, or some of our party had arranged a trip down the Nile. On a sailing vessel, to visit down to the Sudan, to visit the Valley of the Kings, and so I chose to stay around the pyramids because that was my energy. I wasn't sleeping. I needed the energy, the pyramid fix. It seemed that breaking that whole exploration that I was into and taking several days to go down the Nile and back would have been great, Sailing down the Nile was great for a day, wouldn't be too bad, But anyway, I chose to stay, and I had an invite, but the Persian girls, the Persian sisters, had showed up, and they went on the trip, and I was just into my spiritual pursuit. And so the Valley of the Kings is on the west bank of the Nile, down opposite where Thebes, modern day, it's called Luxor, and and the Valley of the Kings, of course, had 60-odd tombs that they had discovered and opened, but one intact tomb that was sensational, of course, and is still the most sensational find yet, was the tomb of Tutankhamun. Completely sealed, completely it was intact. Most everything else had already been, robbed and broken into, all that stuff, but this one, and it turned out to be a motherlode of information and artifacts, of course. And I at a later time, we actually got to experience the treasures of the Tutankhamun tombs in San Francisco as a special tour for the band, and I'll get into that down the road, I guess. And so I was, I don't know how, I was going 24 hours a day visiting different sites and exploring things, and so much went on, and I just can't piece it all together because it was non-stop for me, and of course I needed my daily pyramid dose in the sarcophagus. Now, just to reaffirm something, that the sarcophagus, as far as I'm concerned, was never a chamber for a mummy, for a body. The Great Pyramid is a chamber of alchemy. It's a powerhouse. It translates massive energy. It's like a gramophone needle to the cosmos as the world turns around and spins around the sun, and the sun moves through the galaxy, and it's like an information. It's a cosmic generator, and I could tell by looking at the sarcophagus. I mentioned this earlier. I think there was the lid, of course, wasn't present for a long time. There's no record of it, but the top walls of the sarcophagus, which so-called, it's like the chalice in the chamber of alchemy, in the temple of cosmic knowledge, and it's all in harmonics and geometries and positioning on the planet, and an extraordinary thing, really truly extraordinary. And the where the lid would have gone, there were dovetail sliders, dovetail in, so this lid would slide in and lock, push it off, for example. Some force was in there, it wouldn't push off. It was locked in on this dovetail jointing, and that meant that it was movable. Something probably went in there, something powerful, something to maybe the Ark of the Covenant, who knows, your Indiana Jones enthusiasts, might remember the stories and the movies, but as far as I'm concerned, it was, this was a power chamber. And so I'm doing my toning, of course, and getting refreshed every day. My 1 or 2 12-minute yoga rest cycles were refreshers, but doing this, channeling this energy in the Great Pyramid, as the pyramid moves, as the world turns, and I'm doing toning with the frequency of the pyramid for hours at a time, and I was just getting charged. I mean, I've mentioned it before, but in total I was 21 days without sleep and didn't need it. Didn't even think about it. The last thing I wanted to do was sleep. And no drugs. Well, no stimulants. Well, there was Egyptian tea. Having tea out there with the natives, they brew tea. It was dark black tea, with sugar, and in a little glass, in a filigree metal holder, and very much like the Persians, Anyway, digressing. So I'm charged daily, and I didn't want to really change that, risk changing it, which of course I did when I went to the step pyramid at Saqqara with Ken Kesey. I didn't get my dose that day, and I was like, I caught up with me pretty quickly, but we had a fantastic time, and it was very cosmic. And of course, now I had mentioned that Owsley had, we had gone up the secondary pyramid, climbed it up to the casing stones. It's a much more unstable and not as well put together pyramid. It's not the Great Pyramid by any means, but it's still standing. I think it was much later construction, and not by the same people or forces. But anyway, I remember taking Owsley down to the subterranean chambers, because I had carte blanche on all these locked areas, and so I could take guests. And of course, he was totally into it, and he's fit, and he was really strong. He pumped iron like I did, and so he climbed down the pit like I had, using these old electric cables, and he was able to climb himself out because he was, had enough upper body strength and stuff, and he went down the blind tunnel, and he, experienced whatever he experienced. I would have heard if it had been anything like what I'd experienced. But I remember the next time I went down there, I got to the end of the blind tunnel, which I do basically daily, and there's a deadhead sticker at the end of the tunnel. I went, no. I took it off. I said, no, that's tacky.
Yeah.
Well, but it wasn't. You know, it was like, well, the next deadhead that goes down this tunnel, if there is one, you know, there'll be a deadhead sticker. And, you know, this skull and lightning bolt, it's not so bad. Anyway, it's like, nah, you know, we don't want to, this is just sacred. Anyway. And then there was Chelsea. Chelsea was a great friend of Sam Cutler, and through his life, but particularly in the early days in London. Sam Cutler always said that Chelsea knew more about the rock and roll business than any man he'd ever met. And he was such a wonderful, laid-back Irish guy. He was wonderful. I mean, he and I got to be really good pals there in Egypt. And you know, he came down and did the exploration with us. He insisted he wanted to go down into the pit to experience it. And he was able to slide down on the cables into the bottom of the pit, but he couldn't get himself out. He just didn't have the upper body strength. I mean, you know, he wasn't that kind of physical guy. So I think Charlie Hiltzheimer was with me, and so Charlie and I were able to haul him out of there, you know. And don't let go, you know. It's not very far, but it's still dead weight. You know, I said, you've got to kind of help us and walk your way up the wall of the side of the pit while we haul you up, but don't let go. We got him out. He said, oh, I just had to go. He says, no, it's okay. If I die down there, it's okay. You know, at least I'm doing what I want to do. Oh, Chesley. Such grand and wonderful characters, you know, that, you know, the Mina House was full of them with all of us there. You know, it was absolutely just stoner's paradise. So anyway, the band come back up the Nile from their visit to the Valley of the Kings, and I think a day or so later we decide to take out a felucca. It's a single sailing vessel to go out on the Nile and to smoke hashish, because you know it's illegal. You know, people eat it. They, you know, all kinds of things. It's you don't want to be around somebody that's been eating hashish. It just doesn't smell very good. Anyway, now I hadn't been doing any kind of drugs, well, except for the black Egyptian tea. But so we go out on the felucca. It's mostly the band members and the Persian girls and myself, one or two of other close friends, and we all take LSD, you know. Everybody takes it, including the boatman who's running the boat, who's, you know, I mean, he's definitely a hash user, or maybe even a hash eater, and he's probably done opium too, but you know, that's really a no in those days, you know, there, as in Persia. You know, people could be, you know, they could be hung or shot or whatever. They do, you know, people for dealing, you know, in opioids, you know. And opium is nowhere near as powerful as refined heroin, you know. It's really, you know, it's just a bit of fun. Anyway, we go out on the hash boat. I mean, on the felucca. And so they make up these, they have these, they're like little chellums. They're like clay, and they have a thing that screws in, and they put them in with this black tobacco that, you know, it's Egyptian tobacco that's cured with sugar. Oh God, it's harsh and it's terrible, and man, it must be ravaging on the lungs. And I just was like, you're going to mix that with hashish and to completely just like pollute our, the hashish. He said, it's the way we do it. And I said, okay. I said, may I make my own, can you give me that block of hash and that knife, and I'll make my own little vessel to smoke. So my idea was I cut little stacks of, there were three-sided, three-sided pillars, tiny, of course, and you put them all in the little Shellam vessel, and because there's air flowing through, because of the three-sided figures that meet up, there's like three-sided little air holes, and you build this, and you can light it and smoke it, and it's pure hash. And you'd never seen anything like that. Actually, I hadn't either. It was just an idea. Well, it really caught on. Like pretty soon, that's everybody I knew. That's the way they were doing it, except those that really liked harsh tobacco. But the boatmen and some more of the Egyptian guys, they was like, yes, Mr. Courtenay, he's a very wise man. He show us how to really smoke. It's like, oh, excuse me. So anyway, one of the things that had been proposed was to wire the pyramid for sound for the 3-day event that was coming up, and the band would play 3 nights, and it was a free concert for anybody that could get there. Young people from Cairo, and of course the locals, and of course they'd never seen anything like us in all these exotic half-dressed white girls. It's like they're all coming up in their dresses. I mean, they're whatevers, calabias, and the women are all in their, black things, the little slops. See how.
So the women didn't have to be dressed as well, like the locals. They were able to be just.
No.
They could.
Our women, yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're hanging around the pool in bikinis and stuff. And,
oh, really?
And they go out, in shorts and tank tops.
Oh.
It was shocking.
Wow.
And of course, you can put your tongue away.
Yeah.
It's like
Oops, I just tripped over my tongue.
it's like, it was pretty shocking for them, because the men loved it and the women, well, God knows what they thought. I remember that Nikki Scully, she got in with some of the local women, and they put her in the yashmak, whatever it's called. Excuse me. She showed up completely in the head to toe in the dress, and everything with just the eyes showing. She came right up to me, and I went, what's this, And I was like, Nikki, is that you in there? And she said, yes, the women decided that, I qualified for, to be one of them. I said, well, the only thing you've got in common is you're both the same sex. But, well, anyway. But it was a privilege. They just threw up and they said it was an honorific, really. So she sported herself around in this. I said, isn't it hot in there? She said, it's insufferable. I don't know how they live like this, really. But, I have to honor them. That was, Anyway.
You were talking about the hashish on the boat, and that everyone took LSD.
Oh yes, so we're on the felucca, and thank you. I was wool gathering, or camel tufting or something. Anyway, so we're smoking, and we'd taken the LSD. It's like everybody was going to get high, and the boatman, I'm sure he'd never taken LSD before. I mean, I know he hadn't. And he spoke very little English. And he's starting to go through emergency procedures with the sails and all of the rigging and stuff like that. And he's like frantic. And they're all like, oh, should we be worried? And I said, well, it's a calm day. I mean, unless he overturns us.
Yeah.
which is a possibility. It's like, so I go up to him and I grab him by the shoulder and the arm, and I'm laughing, and I was like, oh no wind, to communicate that it's just in his, I said, it's just, you just, anyway, he goes, and I said, sit down, and he sits down, he just like forgets about everything, Now he's like, nobody's in charge, we're just drifting along on the Nile. But we had a good few hours, and we got back in. That was kind of interesting. By that time, of course, flying, Victoria, my original lover from Persia, she's kind of hanging with Bobby Weir, and has been for a while. And so her sister, she's hanging with me, which was lovely. I mean, they're both gorgeous women, and Patricia, or Light, as she was her chosen name for being on the scene, was she's younger. Meanwhile, the revolution had happened, and Ali, who she was with when we were in Persia, it was Victoria and I, and Ali took up with Patricia, so the four of us were out and about together, and I've talked about that. Anyway, so Ali had been assassinated along with, all of the haves and, the intelligentsia, the jet set, all of the, moneyed people. Did I ever talk about one of the visits we had back then in Persia? One of the people that we went to visit, he had an estate. I mean, it's like a museum of, he was a great white hunter. And every room was, it was complete with jungle or whatever the environment was. There'd be elephants fully, with their trumpets up and roaring, kind of, with, tigers and monkeys and foliage and all stuffed lifelike.
Wow.
Room after room, and every one of these magnificent beasts he had killed on safari. He shot and brought back, stuffed them, made an environment, set them up in this massive mansion. Like, I was grossed out. It was very well done, but I said, what terrible waste of, of this magnificent beasts, and of course, all of this wealth that had gone into creating this monstrosity. Anyway, that was an aside. So I was going to say, one of the things that we decided to wire the pyramid for sound. Now, what that looked like for us was, we were going to feed the music from the stage directly into the King's Chamber, and where it would bounce around the King's Chamber, and then we were going to feed that back to the stage. So we bring the echo of the King's Chamber back to the stage. Well, we could never get it to work. I mean, the pyramid has its own laws. It definitely defeated all our attempts, to make that work. And in fact, there was intermittent feed on the stage itself. So it wasn't seamless, even though the music was great. But I spent the first 2 nights of the music in and on the pyramid. God knows what I was doing. I was doing various things. One of the things we did was we used the edge vents that go down into the King's Chamber that can go to the outside of the pyramid. We used them as conduits for the cables to run through. And it was pretty outrageous what we were attempting, but the sound never happened. But so I of course I'd heard the music many times, and much as it would be fun to just be in the audience or around on stage with my friends and stuff, I preferred to do what I could to make everything, move along and work. So I spent those first 2 nights of music in and on the pyramid. And on the last night of music, and the very next day we'd pack up to leave. So that last night of music was a full moon in total eclipse, and it was in Pisces, at the very end of the zodiac. It was like an amazing, configuration and moment. And there was all kinds of peace talks and things going on around the planet. And it was just, so I'm sitting we're winding up, the band's going to be coming on to the stage, and I'm sitting at the entrance to the Great Pyramid, which is all locked up, of course, for the night. Assuming that I'm going to go up into the King's Chamber and be there for the eclipse. But, I'm silly me, I hadn't made any arrangements, I hadn't mentioned it to the mayor of Giza, who was the holder, keeper of the keys, and Mohammed. Anyway, and I'm just, what was I thinking? I was just assuming, I was like, the cosmos will answer my call. And the moon is starting to go into eclipse. And I'm just like, well, cool out, Courtney. You're so privileged to be here at this wonderful moment in time, and at this, And as soon as I let go of it, I was just like, okay, this is great. Mohammed, the mayor of Giza, shows up, just out of the blue, looks at me, unlocks the pyramid. I go in, and he locks it behind me, and he watches me go into the darkness. I'd been sitting there with Chesley. Chesley wanted to go in. Mohammed went. He was just, he had recognized some attunement I had. Attunement, atonement, one toning, whatever. Anyway, so I walk into the pyramid, and it's pitch black, of course, nighttime. I have no light, no nothing. So, but I knew it like the palm of my hand. So I went up, completely blind. I could have just had my eyes shut, but there was no light at all, and knew my way all the way up, and ascend the Grand Gallery, which is, pretty dangerous there. It's steep and big steps, and then up to, but I just knew it where I was, and got into the King's Chamber, and there's Alan Trist and John Cutler, who was our sound engineer at the time. They were still tinkering, trying to get the feedback to work. But Alan wasn't an engineer, but he was there as a support system, and he was one of the people that actually opened up the possibility of coming to the pyramid for the band to play. He had come previous to this event and kind of arranged it. He was quite the diplomat, fellow Englishman. He was the president of Ice Nine Publishing Company and the editor. Ice Nine Publishing was Grateful Dead's publishing company for their songwrites and all of this stuff. And Alan and I were, great friends and lifelong friends. And John Cutler was, a great guy. He was a hard worker. He knew his stuff, but, and I just appeared out of the gloom, out of the darkness. And anyway, they said, well, I think we're done here. And they left me to my own devices. So I spent the 3 hours or so of the eclipse toning and visualizing and just channeling the energy. And then when I thought it was probably time, I navigated my way down in the darkness to the gates of the pyramid, and Mohammed had posted a guard out there to let me out, and he unlocked the gates, opens it, and I walk out. He backs off, and I come out of the dark pitch blackness, and he's like, none of those guys, were anywhere close to, having the kind of access that I had as a foreigner, just showing up because I had some mission, some destiny. And And then I get down onto the stage. Well, all of the people, all of our friends are on one side of the stage, and the other side is where all the nexus of all the power cables and everything. And there was this interrupted feed going on, and they'd all taken mushrooms. Everybody taken mushrooms, and I see Owsley, and I take a dose of LSD, and this is really apart from having a few puffs of hashish on the boat. That this is the only stimulant I'd had. Except for the black tea. But so I start dancing right on the nexus where the big power cables go together, and the bands are just right down the line, and I'm just dancing and channeling this energy, and I felt like a powerhouse, having just come out of the pyramid just for the whole eclipse. And the eclipse is past. The event was happening. It was perfect. Umbra, and penumbras, it was like quite the event, but I knew what it would look like. I didn't get to see it because I was inside. Anyway, we danced all night. I danced all night. I stayed on one side of the stage and everybody else on the other because the energies were different. And then I think played through the night. Yeah, and then just before dawn breaks, we start to break it down. And that's that. And one of the things that Bill Graham had done, because he was there with us, and we'd had a few, encounters, and I tried. I don't think he ever got down to the subterranean chambers. He wanted to, but he had to sleep. Something ridiculous. But we were all in it together and having fun. He had lined up 40 camels and 20 horses to take us to Sahara City, which is a tent nightclub out in the sands, about 15 kilometers away. And so 15 kilometers doesn't sound far, but when you're on a horse or camel on the Sahara pre-dawn, well, let me get into it. So we get there, and there's all these camels are all kneeling down, and they've got, each one of them's got an old man or a young boy as a camel driver, and they got this little switch, that, and the camel ears go back, and it depends on the signal, the rider gets on it, like in our case it was one of our friends, so all the camels are taken, and there's this one camel sitting there with no camel driver, so I jump on it. All the horses had already taken off because they're quick, they're way ahead of the camels. Yeah. People had leapt on the horses as fast as they could grab them because that was more of a shore ride. But I'd been on I'd taken a few rides on the camels since I'd been there, and I knew my way around a camel. So anyway, I jump on this camel. He's kneel down. I go, just make the noise with my, like, and his ears go back, and he gets up. I go, and off he goes. Off he goes. I whip this camel out into the sands, and following the tracks of the other camels and horses. No camel driver, just me and the camel. And there's a point at which I get to the top of a dune, and there's no camels or horses. Well, it hasn't been for a while. I'm just on my own out there, and there's the full moon is setting and the sun is rising, and for a moment there, both orbs are completely visible above the horizon because of the refraction through the Earth's atmosphere. Yeah. Even though they're opposite and one should be on the other side of the planet. Yeah. They were both visible simultaneously, and all these colors, and it was absolutely, what a spectacle. It was just something fabulous. And I'm like, well, I orient myself from the direction I'm going, and there's a sinking moon and there's a rising sun, and I'll just keep the sun at my back. And off we go. And finally, me and the camel, we're the only water out there. When that sun comes up, it's going to get blazing hot, Of course, there's nothing else out there. It's just sands. And finally, there's this tent city comes into view, and we just ride down into it. And there's belly dancers, and there's food, and they'd kind of, because we all descended on them, a whole gang of us, they'd reopen the kitchens, such as they were, and bring us out sweetmeats and things, and drinks, water, and and it was a fun time. And so when it came time to return, well, Keith Gaucho and I were great friends, so we both copped a horse. I left my camel there, somebody will get it. We rode back. That was a wonderful way to end an extraordinary visit to the pyramids. And then when we returned, we had tea. We hung with some of the natives, the guides, had hot tea, and then I say I have some duties to attend to, and I go back into the Great Pyramid, and there's Mohammed, and he's just like expecting me, and we go up into the King's Chamber, and of course there's all this gear that's left up there, and it's expensive gear, and so we these giant drums of cables that we have to rewind and carry all the way down, and they weigh a lot. And I'm using the rail, and Mohammed is humping another load of stuff, but he and I cleared the equipment out of the King's Chamber and brought it down to the loading trucks. And Ruby's greeting her neighbor Freddie. He's a little Yorkshire Terrier, so cute. And so we're basically done.
Yeah. That wraps up.
Oh yes, that was 37 minutes. Gosh, time flies when you're having fun.
Right? Awesome. Well, that was great, Courtney.
Okay, wonderful.
I hope you guys enjoyed that. That, I think, wraps up Egypt,
Pretty much. It's just a flight back.
Yeah. Ooh. Well, maybe we'll touch on that in the next episode. And thanks for joining, guys. Remember, like and subscribe to hear some more stories, because we're not done yet.
Thank you.
Thanks.